Southampton Students' Union on the hottest day of the year. We couldn't have planned this any better, could we? But I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you onto campus for this Hustings for the Southampton Test constituency. My name is Jane Falkingham, and I have the absolute honour of being the Vice President Engagement and International for the university, which is the best job in the world because I'm responsible for our civic relationship. And over the past 2 years, the University of Southampton has really upped its game in terms of taking its civic responsibility much more seriously and signed a civic university agreement with the 5 local authorities that we have a physical footprint in, which of course includes Southampton. And there is the Hustings tonight here for Southampton Test because this is where we are. Highfield campus sits in the middle of the Southampton Test constituency. So I'm really delighted that under the Electoral Commission rules, it says that we should, if we're organising a Hustings, we should write to all the prospective parliamentary candidates and invite them. And all came, all 7. So that's really fantastic. But that does mean that the candidates have been fully briefed that they're going to have to keep things a little bit short because we do want to let you, the audience, have an opportunity to ask the questions that you want to ask. I would say that at the moment this Hustings is being live streamed and is being recorded. So we would ask you not to make recordings of it yourself, but because this is a fully ticketed event, we will be making the link to the recording available to everybody afterwards. And of course, some people, we were sold out, and so that's why we're live streaming it as well. So I put everybody's name in a hat last night, just to be completely impartial, and pulled out the order in which I'm going to ask the candidates to make their opening statements. Each candidate has already been prepped that I'm going to give them 1 minute to make an opening statement, and then we're going to move to questions from the floor, and I won't keep to the same order, don't worry. I'm going to rove around and ask the candidates different questions in different orders. I have got some pre-submitted questions here. So if we run out of energy in the room, then I've got some to turn to. And you won't be surprised, candidates, that the very first question is to do with university tuition fees. So just get your thinking hats on about that, because I'm sure that many people in this audience, given that we are holding this Hustings at a student union, will be interested in that. But I'm sure actually the audience is going to be interested in so much more than that. So this is not just a Hustings about what's of interest to universities per se, but actually to the whole of our community and the society in which we live. So I'm going to do a Fiona Bruce, I think, and just kind of gently move around. All of the candidates do have, the fan's a bit noisy that side. All of the candidates do have their own microphone, but we have a very nice man called Ben at the back who can turn your microphone off if you keep going for too long. So, in terms of the ballot, in terms of order, I'm first going to, do you mind if I just use your first names? Yeah. So for the order in which the candidates are going to give their opening statements is, first of all, we'll go to Ben, and then we go to Catherine, and then we go to Maggie, and then unfortunately John Edwards, who's the Reform candidate, is unwell tonight, and so Philip is going to stand in for him. Philip is his agent. Then we go to Satvia, and then again, unfortunately, Wajahat is unwell, so Dee, Aslan is going to represent the Workers' Party of Britain, and then the final word goes to Thomas. So, over to you, Ben. Ben is our Conservative candidate, Ben Birkenfiller.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, sorry. We'll try that again. Good evening, everyone. My name's Ben, and I'm your Conservative candidate in Southampton Test. Hands up, who thought a 33-year-old person with cerebral palsy would be the Tory candidate? not really what you would expect, but I'm here because I've got a debt to repay to Southampton Test. I first came here when I was 18 months old. I've been written off after being diagnosed with cerebral palsy. They said I wouldn't talk, walk, or live an independent life. It was the skill and commitment of the staff at Southampton Hospital that have allowed me to be in front of you tonight. And so I'm here to represent them and to repay the debt I have to them and give them a real choice in this election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Well, that was well within your opening first minute. So over to Catherine Barber, who is our Green Party candidate. Catherine.
Thanks, Jen. Good evening, everyone. This is number 7. That is so good because 7 is my lucky number. So, good evening, everyone. Really good to be here. It's lovely being in this bar. I did my MBA here at Southampton, so it's lovely being back here again. Our world's in trouble, and I'm here representing the Green Party to say that there is a new way, there is a different way that we can do things. My background is in health and social care. I've had a career in Southampton, and now I've put myself forward to represent the Green Party because I really believe that we can do things differently. We aren't going to get out of the mess we're in through economic growth. We've got to do things differently. So please listen to our answers today and make your mind up in the when you go to the poll on the 4th of July. Please vote Green. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. And can I just say that the bar, if anybody's hot and needs a glass of water, please do. There's water available on the bar, and of course it's also open for teas and coffees if anybody is feeling a bit chilly. So we're now going to turn to Maggie Fricker, and Maggie is the candidate for the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition. Maggie.
Hi folks, is it working? Yeah? I hope you don't mind me staying in a seating position. I'm just getting over a chest infection, so I'm not 100%. Yes, we are a coalition of various different groups, trade unionists, campaigners against cuts, and socialists. I'm a member of the Socialist Party locally. We are anti-war, anti-austerity. And when I say anti-war, I'm talking about the genocide that is currently taking place in Gaza. So I've been on protests since this started in October. So we support the end of that war. We support Israeli troops out and peace in the region. Our coalition also campaigns against cuts to local services, which we've been very active, and I'm very glad to say that I was part of those who saved St Mary's Leisure Centre from the cuts imposed by both the Tories and by the Labour Council. I also want us to do something about climate change, and my time is up, but I'm sure there'll be questions on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you for keeping to time. So Philip Crook, he's here to stand in for John Edwards, and John Edwards is the Reform UK prospective parliamentary candidate.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for inviting me tonight. I know it's warm, but please bear with us. I'm not going to bop up and down because we're on a stage. John Edwards had a fall, concussion in hospital. He's fine, but he volunteered me to represent him tonight to take the flag. My name is Philip Crook. I'm the agent and candidate campaign organiser for Reform UK in Southampton area, where we're fielding 3 candidates in all the constituencies. We're a new party, 3 years old, and we are polling arguably second, depending which poll you are. So we're an emerging party. The revolution is here. The new party is emerging on the scene, and we are gaining lots of votes and support, particularly amongst young people as well. There's a lot going on that side. I look forward to your questions. We don't always have all the answers, but we'll do our best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for standing in at short notice. And now I'm turning to Satvir Kaur, who is the prospective parliamentary candidate for the Labour Party. Satvir.
Thank you, Jane. Hi, everyone. My name's Satvir Kaur. I'm Labour's parliamentary candidate for Southampton Test. I wanted to start by quickly thanking Susu for organising this very last minute, so thank you very much. As an alumni here, this is a real moment for me. When I was a student here, if I'm completely honest, if someone had stopped me and said, you'd be standing in front of a crowd like you today saying, you're pitching for your support to stand as our Member of Parliament, I never would have believed you, because I didn't think people like me were in politics, so I'm really, really grateful to be here. So I'm standing because Southampton is my home. It's where I'm born and bred, studied both universities, and always lived. I've loved working with others to try and make, I could shout.
Microphone.
Yep. Oh, thank you, Ben. I've loved working with others to champion our city, including the university, and make our city better. But what's been increasingly frustrating is a recognition that for lasting and meaningful change, we actually need a change of government, and that is why I'm standing. I'm standing because I see the opportunities that me and my family had growing up to turn our aspirations into reality being robbed from the next generation. I'm standing because Britain is broken and Southampton deserves so much better. It's heartbreaking to see families I know struggling under 14 years of failure. I always have and always will fight for Southampton, but right now I'm fighting for change and I'm fighting for our future, and the only way we deliver change from the Conservatives is voting Labour, so hopefully I can count on your support on July 4th next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, unfortunately, Wajahat Salkat is unable to be here tonight. He's he'll be on the ballot paper for the Workers' Party of Britain, but Dee Aslan is standing in for him. So, Dee.
Hello? Okay, thanks everyone for being here. I'm representing Wajaha, who's standing for the Workers' Party of Britain. Basically, we're also quite a new party, which was formed in 2019, and I'm sure most of you know our leader is George Galloway, who's quite famous for holding politicians to account at Westminster. We have 152 candidates standing in this election. We already have quite a few councillors throughout the country. So Wajahat himself, the reason we are very passionate about being anti-war, that is one of our main issues, is that we are devastated by what is happening in Palestine. And we are also devastated by the lack of good response by our own politicians, the fact that a ceasefire was voted against. And this is not okay as far as we're concerned. So that is our main passion, being against all war. We also believe our troops should not be sent into foreign wars, say going inside Russia. We don't believe in conscription for our young people. And we, that's it basically. I'll just speak a bit more about Wajahat. He's a former worker for the NHS, working both in the mental health sector and as a first responder in an ambulance crew. And he's now working as a driving instructor within Southampton. He's got great experience working with all kinds of people. He lives locally in Southampton, is married with 2 small children. At the moment he's very unwell, that's why he couldn't be here tonight. So I'll stop there, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Dee, for representing him. And last, but by no means least, it is Thomas Gravatt. Thomas Gravatt, representing the Liberal Democrats.
Hello everybody, I'm Thomas Gravatt, I'm the Lib Dem candidate. I first came to Southampton in 2014, like I'm sure some of you may have come here for the same reason, to study here. I studied modern history and politics, and like I'm sure so many of you as well, I fell in love with the city, and yes sir, I fell in love with this city and I decided to build a life here. But the reason I'm standing as a Lib Dem candidate and to be your Member of Parliament is because Southampton does need change. Our city is in trouble. The Conservatives have wrecked the national economy, and locally, Labour have a dreadful record of running Southampton City Council, where they've nearly bankrupted the city and made heartless cuts to vital local services. And we deserve better, and a vote for the Liberal Democrats is a vote to change things for the better. It's a vote to tackle poverty and end homelessness. It's a vote for an internationalist United Kingdom that works with its allies across the world, and especially in Europe, to fight for peace and justice. And it's a vote for a free, fair and open society where everyone is welcome and protected regardless of their beliefs and regardless of their background. So Southampton is my home. I love living here, but we do need change to make sure this city can be as good as it can be. And we can make things better. We can build a United Kingdom that is fairer and greener and safer, but to do this, we need to fundamentally change the way British politics functions, and the Liberal Democrats will do this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to let the audience keep thinking about their questions, and I'm going to actually start with the question that was submitted in advance, because this question was submitted in about 10 different variants. So we tried to paraphrase them, but I'm going to start with Thomas. I'm going to call on you first. There has been no increase to UK tuition fees since 2017, meaning they are now worth nearer £6,000 than £9,000 to universities. What do candidates think the impact of this has had on higher education, and what would they do to address the problems within the current HE funding model? Thomas.
A very interesting question. We've got a bit of history of tuition fees in the Lib Dems, I'll admit it. Higher education funding is vitally important, and actually this is something where the government can have a direct impact through government funding for universities and subsidise higher education. It doesn't have to all fall on the individual to pay for education and to fund vital research. And actually the Lib Dems would be setting up various different research groups to make sure that research funding in particular, which is one of the university's crucial points, is properly funded. And more related to the tuition fees point, we know that higher education funding can be exclusionary to people particularly from underrepresented and disadvantaged backgrounds, which is one of the reasons that the Lib Dems would bring back maintenance grants for students from these backgrounds to ensure that everyone has the equal opportunity to attend university and get a good education.
Thank you. Well, I think all three of the major parties have a little history with fees, actually. So, Satvir, I think fees were introduced by your party originally.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So, as a student here, I had to have 3 different jobs, so I understand how difficult it can be. And actually, I did that what feels now 1,000,000 years ago. So I can't imagine how difficult it is for students at the moment. I was also board governor for Solent University, just down the road, so really understand the difficulties that HE is in at the moment. When this comes up on the doorstep, it's usually by a young person saying the reason why we don't trust politics and politicians is because the Lib Dems promised to scrap tuition fees, and as soon as they had a whiff of power, decided not to go ahead with it. So what the Labour Party is committed to doing is not lying to you and saying what is and isn't deliverable. When it comes to tuition fees, what we said we'd do is that the funding formula clearly is not working and it's not fit for purpose. We've committed to working with the HE sector to ensure that what we have is right for the sector and is right for students as well. We've said that we'd look at maintenance grants to support people on lower incomes, especially families and children that are thinking twice about going to university or not. But most importantly, when I talk to younger people at university, it's not as much of the fees as it is the cost of living. So one of the main things we're going to do is try and tackle the cost of living, whether that is taking away the ridiculous wage band that we have. So you can be a young person doing exactly the same job as someone 2 or 3 years older but get paid less. What we've said is that whatever your age is, you should get paid a decent wage, and that minimum wage should be increased. Also, a lot of young people rent, so we're ending the bidding war when it comes to renters so that you can get rent for cheaper. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Satvir. Catherine, what are the Greens going to do?
Thank you, Jane. So the Green Party policy would be
And I think maybe we need to find 1 or 2 microphones that work and then take the others away because we've got too much feedback going on.
The Green Party policy would be to remove tuition fees and to restore grants to young people. The situation here in Southampton, when I go around meeting people on the doorstep who are struggling with paying their fees and then also accruing a lot of debt, which they then have to start paying once they're working, makes people think twice about coming into further education. The Green Party would also restore the education maintenance allowance, which is a grant paid to people in the age 16 to 18 to help them remain in education and to have time there. But it's a very big issue, and university numbers are dropping, and so Solent University is thinking when I was there recently, thinking about what their strategy is going to be to encourage more people to come to university, and thinking about the age at which people study to encourage older people to come back into study again and to do a degree, for example. And those sound like really good strategies which the Green Party would get behind and support universities with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as a professor of demography, I'm very interested in lifelong learning and ageing as I get older myself. Ben, what are the Conservatives going to do?
Okay, first I'm going to check I've got a good microphone.
You do.
The Conservative manifesto says that education is the closest thing to a silver bullet we have to grow our economy. And they're right. But I don't think the answer is more people going to university, more money being thrown at the problem. I think you need to go to university if it's right for you. If it's not, there need to be other options. That's why we're committed to 100,000 apprenticeships. I've seen the impact of these myself. My sister's partner left school with no GCSEs. He now owns a scaffolding company because he started doing an apprenticeship and getting skills. In terms of university, we want to make sure that when you come here, or any university for that matter, the course you do boosts your employability, it boosts your skills, and it boosts your earning potential. If it doesn't, then that course needs to go. That's why the Conservative Party is committed to getting rid of what you would call rip-off degrees. If we can make the system more efficient and we can make the system better for students, then it will help address the funding gap that was outlined in the question. I don't necessarily think more places and more money is the solution because there is only a limited pot of money. It has to put students first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can see that that's been a little bit controversial in the audience, and maybe I'll come to the audience in a true Fiona Bruce style in a moment. But Dee, any comments on tuition fees?
Hi. Yes, we also would like to work towards a system of grants for students and eventually no fees at all. We recognise this will take time, but we do believe in education right through everybody's lifetime. So we want to make it easier for older people as well to come to university. We're also very committed to industry, to renewing some of our industries here in the UK, and any kind of education that goes with that in training towards the industries, the growing industries here. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie?
Right, mine's working, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, I believe in free education from cradle to grave. And I think that's the only way that you'll have equal opportunity, is for it to be free. The question actually was about funding for universities. Now, I think you have to decide whether you think a university is a business or a place where people get an education. Now, I think it should be a place where people get an education. So I think universities should be fully funded so that they can do that. So we would certainly want to get rid of tuition fees and grants and provide living grants for students. Now, this is a particularly important issue for health workers. I think I probably said at the beginning that I'm a health worker, maybe I didn't. And we are in crisis. We have 100,000 plus job vacancies in the health service, which means that health professionals who do a degree, then they, alongside being overworked and under-resourced, they are also in crippling debt, which is why the junior doctors are taking strike action starting tomorrow. So we would say that if we are going to do anything for our health service and other services, then we have to fund people have their training.
Thank you. Thank you, Maggie. Sorry, I'm going to move us on because Philip's going to have the last word on fees, and then I'm going to go to the audience. So, Philip.
Yeah, it's basically fractured, the education system across the board. But for the university funding, we would maintain that. But we'll also enhance research and development, because that's vital. Making good use of our expertise in the universities with outstanding research, engineering, medical, particularly here in Southampton, to attract more students from abroad, fee paying, which helps fund the university system. But the good news is, which no other party really wants to talk about, is that for students leave here, I think a nursing student leaves with about a £36,000 debt. You train someone to be a nurse and you leave them with £36,000 in debt. Well, to help that, Reform Party will scrap the interest on student loans. We'll also scrap the medical students' loan for over 10 years, because these are vital people within the system, and we need to help them as much as they can, the young people start in life. We'll also raise the tax threshold from 12.570 to £20,000. So those starting off in jobs, they're getting more money in their pocket, about 7 million people getting 1,500 quid more, particularly younger people. But certainly we're behind the university system and improving it and developing it, because we see it as a business and an educational opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So just to let everybody know that first opening round of introductions and questions took 28 minutes. So we're a third of our way in. So we're going to have to pick up the pace, and I'm going to have to really channel my Fiona Bruce and start interrupting. But we're going to open up now for questions from the floor. So many hands. That gentleman over there, right at the back. Thank you. And then I'll move around.
I think my question will go to the Conservative. You mentioned that you want to get rid of rip-off courses. I'm an academic and I strongly believe that every course has its importance. How do you measure a rip-off course that you want to get rid of?
Okay, so that was a direct question, I think, to you, Ben. He's saying, which courses do you think are rubbish courses, and which ones would you get rid of? And by the way, he's a lecturer here, so you have to be a bit careful that you're not closing his course down. He didn't tell us what discipline he's in, so.
I'm lecturing in mathematics.
Mathematics. We're not going to close mathematics, I don't think.
Right, it's not about having a list, it's about having a criteria. The whole idea is there's already a body that looks at the viability of university degrees, but currently they don't really have the power to close them. They just have the power to engage with the universities. the plan is to look at employability, skills, and dropout rates, and then cut the bottom 2% based on those criteria. So there isn't a fixed list of courses that are on the chopping block. It's doing what's right for people, students, and universities. It's not arbitrary.
Okay, thanks. So that was a very specific question to Ben, so I'm not going to come back to the rest of you. I'm trusting that the rest of you aren't going to close down any courses at the University of Southampton, and indeed maybe Ben isn't either. Front row. Do you want to? I don't need it. Well, we're recording. The UK. Paraphrase that. This is about, if you didn't catch it, I think most of the speakers did, but it's about using our bases on Cyprus to support Israel in the conflict in Gaza. And would we close, if you were elected, would you close the base in Cyprus and return it to the Cypriot government? So, can you... It's the fan. It's the fan.
Can I just say that I'm really experiencing a lot of noise pollution here, and I'm finding it really quite distressing. And I don't know if people have done research, any researchers on noise pollution are in the room, but it isn't good for us. And all this noise, I know we need the cooling, but the noise is hard.
Maybe we could turn the fan off for just a little bit. Please.
Can I answer that question? There. I spent 33 years in the military. Cyprus is a key global operational base for intelligence gathering information on all events in the Middle East. It's very important because we can monitor, then we can react on that intelligence base. The Cypriot government, the Cypriot people want us there. I was there myself many, many years ago. Yes, I believe free Palestine of Hamas.
Thank you. Dee, do you want to pick that question up?
I didn't quite catch the whole question.
It was about not using our the base in Cyprus.
Right. Okay. I can talk about the war in Gaza, but not particularly.
Okay.
I know we have our
1 minute.
We have a troop station there. So we don't.
No British troops.
No, not in Cyprus. I mean, I know. Okay. I won't talk about the base. All I know is that our country is running spy flights from Cyprus over Palestine, which we totally disagree with. So I'll just end there.
Thank you. Satya.
Thanks for your question. I'm going to be honest, I don't know about individual bases, and I don't know what the Labour Party would do with individual bases. What I would say is that I'm definitely concerned about arms sales to Israel, which I think was kind of the basis of your question, and it's actually one of the reasons why the Labour Party have questioned the Conservative government, because at the moment they're hiding behind legal guidance, but they're failing to share that at the moment. So they have raised questions about arms sales to Israel. What I would say is Labour Party policy is a permanent and immediate ceasefire in Israel. We want the fighting to end. We want hostages to be released. We voted for a ceasefire. It's the only one that went through Parliament. If I'm allowed to finish, Chair, and if there is a Labour government after next week, we really want to champion a two-state solution. And one of the most kind of plausible things we can do to try and push that forward is recognising the state of Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben.
Right. Again, I don't know what specific Conservative Party policy around that base would be, so I'm not going to speculate. But I think this is one of the areas where there's actually some similarities between Conservatives and Labour. As far as I understand, there is a peace deal on the table at the moment that's been voted on by the UN. It's obviously not gone down too well in Israel because a few of their cabinet ministers have resigned. That tells us there are some compromises there. America is behind the peace deal, so are we. And the Conservative Party wants the hostages returned, the bloodshed over, and a two-state solution. I don't think words like genocide are helpful when we're trying to get a peace deal over the line.
Maggie. Okay. Can we let all of the candidates answer the questions, please? Thank you very much, Maggie.
Yes. First of all, I would say not in our name. Certainly not in my name. I don't consider those bases to be our bases. They're not bases that represent the working class or ordinary people. And when you talk about Cyprus, there are two sides in Cyprus, and perhaps not the whole population wants a military base there. As far as releasing hostages, we should not forget that there are thousands of hostages in Israeli jails, men, women, and children being tortured and sexually assaulted. That is what's taking place. And there is a wealth of evidence for that.
So can you
so I
say
would say, right from the outset, we called for a ceasefire. Too little, too late, I would say, of the Labour Party. We now have no health services to speak of in Gaza, and for a health worker, it breaks my heart to see injured and dying people who we could save.
Thank you. Thomas.
So thank you for the question. It's a very important question. It's one of the biggest pressing issues in the world at the moment. We do have a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. We know that, and the Liberal Democrats have been really clear on this from the start. We called for a ceasefire in November once it was clear that the actions of the Israeli state were causing a humanitarian crisis. We called for arms sales to be ceased to Israel so that British arms and funding were not being used to kill people. And we have been long-term advocates for a two-state solution. Now that means a strong, legally recognized, internationally recognized Palestinian state, but it also means a strong Israeli state. And we have to come to a solution where both states feel safe and free and able to run their countries and protect their people. Now, it's not going to be easy. We know it's an incredibly difficult situation and there's a lot of emotions on both sides, but we do need a solution that uses diplomacy and uses international pressure to make sure we are always fighting for peace.
Okay, thank you. Catherine?
Thank you. I've had more emails over the last 3 weeks about this issue than about any other issue. And the position of the Green Party is we called for a ceasefire in November. We condemn the actions of Hamas. But since then, we have been in a situation of Palestinians being murdered, having their access to water, their access to healthcare. And now in the last week, we've been hearing that rubbish isn't being removed from near where people are living, and so rats and diseases are growing. We've had a long history of this, of absolute atrocities happening to Palestinians. My mother went to Ramallah 30 years ago with the Quakers and came back and talked to me and told me about what had been happening there. And since then, I've supported Palestinians and raised awareness about it here in our community. This is an area where we need to get women round the table. We need to get women from both sides actually talking to each other and saying, you know, what is a way forward for this? I don't know whether a two-state solution is the answer or not, but I know that women will come up with better solutions than the men who have been trying to do this.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to give Ben the last word on this. Oh no, you've been. Sorry.
Just to say something on that. Remember, Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organization.
Okay.
No, globally.
So
It's also remember the 7th of October, how that started. And also that the millions and millions of UN aid went into tunnels and rockets.
Philip, I gave this question more airtime because it's a very important question. But but you had you came up and answered first. So and apologies, Ben. Of course you answered. It's just a little hot standing over in the sunshine. I'm going to move us on. Recognizing that this is a very important topic and we may well come back to it, I'm going to move back to one of our pre-submitted questions, which is actually moving from the international to a very local issue. So this is I think actually all of our candidates are local, so I hope you're all going to be able to answer this question. And this is about active travel zones and the proposal to limit traffic on Portswood Broadway. What is your opinion on the proposals on Portswood Broadway, and do you agree that such measures are needed to improve air quality in Southampton? It's actually a really, really important issue for many of our local residents. So, of course, you're standing to be in Parliament as a member of your national parties, but also as a local constituency MP. So, who would like to go first on Portswood Broadway and measures to improve air quality?
I will.
Go on.
I'll give the others a chance to think about this, because I've heard the arguments on both sides and agreed with one and then agreed with the other. I think it's incredibly difficult. And so I think I would say I want a massive improvement in public transport. Actually, I'd like free public transport, because I think that's the only way you're going to get the cars off the road. I'd also like, and you might see this as a side issue, that people have their hours at work reduced to 32 instead of 40 or more that people currently do. And people might think that why is that relevant? But actually, if I've got a long shift at work, I want to get there as quickly as possible. So maybe I'm going to get into a car to do that. Whereas if my work shifts are shorter, then I'll be more happier to take my time getting to work. But decent public transport, I think, would solve some of these problems.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I would say that University of Southampton research has shown that we have the third worst air quality in the country. So we do need to do something as a city. So, Ben, what would you do if you were our constituency MP?
Well, I think that the crux... Sorry.
No heckling, please, especially from the platform.
Right, sorry about that. I think the most important thing is that the people that live in Southampton get a say. Too often, politicians tell people what they should do or what they want. Now, the consultation on this, correct me if I'm wrong, was invitation only. Now, if you can control the invites, you can control whose opinions you get. So I think it's important that the local people get asked. And if the majority of people want it, then it should happen. If the majority of people don't want it, then it shouldn't happen. But the one thing politicians shouldn't do is sit there sanctimoniously and say, we know best, because actually you elected us or not, and we're here to serve you. So I think that's the crux of the issue, is it needs to be decided by local residents. If that means having a local referenda of some kind, then we should, if it's important, if the issue is important enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, Satvia, you were responding as Ben was talking, so official response now.
Oh, God. I don't know how official it's going to be anymore. But, clearly Ben doesn't know the details of Portswood Broadway. I kind of lived and breathed it. Just to clarify, there were 2 major consultations when it comes to Portswood Broadway, extremely extensive. It was a national government policy, so we're using national government funding to make it happen, because actually Maggie is right, we do need to ensure that public transport is working, and it was to help the bus infrastructure in our city to become better connected. Both sets of consultation actually were in favour. I totally get that when people talk about Portswood Broadway and it's become extremely polarised, there's different demographics that feel differently. So the students, for example, particularly that attend here, were hugely, overwhelmingly in favour, because they thought it would increase their livability within this neighbourhood, whereas older residents had an issue. I think actually the council's done the right thing and had 2 major extensive consultations, which was an invitation only, anybody could respond to it, you name it, the council did it, whether it was scrutiny inquiries, data, sharing the data, having one-to-ones, having drop-ins, coming to the university, coming to local community groups, going to the local library to see how this would work. And actually I'm pleased that the council has had a really measured response to this, to say this is really serious, and actually we do need to look at public transport, and the Labour Party has lots of policies on public transport.
Okay.
But as we're talking about Portswood Broadway, I am pleased that it is going to start off as a trial. So again, it could be looked at, the strengths and weaknesses and how it could be improved. But I think this farce that we did not consult and people were not consulted and didn't have their say is wrong.
Thanks, Satvia. The questioner was actually, yes, they wanted your opinion on the proposals, but they also wanted people's opinions on the need to improve air quality, which I think Maggie focused on, but also how we are going to tackle the urgent need to decarbonise travel. So, but that's okay. We can come back to net zero. But does anyone else want to jump in on perhaps? Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much for the question. Something that's concentrated our minds in Portswood for the last few years. Clearly, we do need to have different ways of getting around our city which don't involve single people in motor cars. And the Green Party policy is very clear that we need to have other ways of getting around the city, and using electric transport, using ways that aren't so destructive of our planet. There's microplastics coming out of tyres and going into the rivers and polluting those spaces. And we are needing to do things radically differently. And unfortunately, this particular project was some money that was available, and it was shoehorned into Portswood, in my view. And we've got a scheme now which isn't going to satisfy anybody. It's going to cause rat runs around the area. Anybody who lives in this area will be concerned about where traffic will go that's no longer on the Broadway. And it's going to be from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and won't actually encourage people to be in the Broadway between 10 and 4 at a time when it might be quite nice to be there and have coffee and things. I mean, I talked to people about this 6 years ago. I spoke to every shopkeeper along Portswood Broadway and said, you know, what's your view about changing things in Portswood Broadway, and having, you know, sharing with them the research from across Europe about what difference it makes to areas where they do have pedestrianised areas. And you know, people were in favour of it, but unfortunately this scheme came along and it polarised people, and so now traders locally are against it, and a lot of local people are against it as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe Thomas, move away from Portswood Broadway, but to more generally, what would you do in terms of trying to decarbonise our travel and improve our air quality?
I'll do a little bit Broadway.
Okay, you do a little bit Broadway.
I think this is quite a good example of the way Labour have mismanaged the city. we had a scheme that actually, initially, I was fairly sympathetic of. You know, it was a kind of more pedestrianisation scheme, but what we've ended up with is a watered-down scheme that amounts to, as Catherine identified, a part-time busgate, which isn't really going to help anyone, it's just going to annoy everyone. The broader question about air quality is a really important one, because we have got dreadful air quality in this city. But I think the issue we have is we've got this large international world-renowned port, but we're not actually holding them to account on air pollution. We've got ships parking up at berth, running diesel generators the whole time they're in the city, and they need to be made to plug into electricity shoreside so they're not polluting our air. On top of that, we need to be looking at introducing a proper park and ride for the city. We've got these strange kind of small, insignificant schemes around the city. We need a proper one, and we should also be looking at more radical solutions to public transport, like the reintroduction of trams. Thank you.
All trams. Thank you. That sounds really good. Just on the plugging in, again, I'm just going to plug the university's research.
So they're not polluting our air.
And we've done research on this, and actually, if all the ships plugged in, we would all lose our electricity. At the moment,
then we need
our
upgrades to the national grid.
would go out, absolutely. So we do, you're absolutely right, but I'm not sure we have the resilience yet as a city. So, but call on us for our research and we'll tell you. Anyway, Philip.
It just proves the point there that, first of all, I concur with some of Ben's points. We don't want big government pressing down, dictating to us. It's up to the people, what you want, what's best for you, not what big government decides. And surely, electric vehicles are going to solve this problem, isn't it?
Call on us for our research and we'll tell you.
Isn't that the solution?
Philip.
And Labour have said, just proves the point there that we're going to have this net zero policy, and you have to buy electric car, etc., pressing down. So there's no pollution problem after that. It's up on the boat. What you want. Yes, there's a problem there, but the national grid is not up to it, because 11% of our electricity is currently done by wind farms and solar panels, and they estimate, and correct me if I'm wrong, that to be 100% wind and solar, we need like 18 or 20% of the UK landscape, don't forget space between, covered in wind farms and solar panels. I will stand correct on that figure, but if you want that next to you, then fine. Reform Party are looking at nuclear energy, the modular reactors, etc., to make the United Kingdom self-reliant on energy, rather import the carbon footprint from abroad. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to go to the audience for another question because we're running out of time rapidly. The hands shot up. One of those two gentlemen sitting next to each other, you have to choose which one of you. Oh, you can. Yeah. Okay, you want more on decarbonisation? You look like engineers. All right. Yeah.
Hello, testing.
Yeah.
So decarbonisation is not really happening in Southampton at all. It's insignificant. And we're in a situation now in 5 years' time where it's almost definite we're going to close to the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we're not going to abandon the shipping industry because there isn't the stomach for that, even though wealthy people are, we're milking that situation.
Get to your question,
what
please.
are we going to do to protect the environment from the fires that might come out of the New Forest and North Hampshire into the cities? Because those fire breaks aren't in place. And like France, when the river's dried, it's going to happen.
Okay, that sounds like a question for the Green Party to start with, where everyone else can collect their thoughts. How are we going to stop the New Forest fires shooting over? But more generally, how are we going to address the climate crisis?
Lovely. Thank you so much for that question, Joe. You could have told me what you were going to ask before you came. But so this is the beginning of real problems. I mean, today we're experiencing very warm temperatures. That's quite nice. That's a summer thing. But over the last few months, we've had a huge amount of rainfall, much more than we would normally expect in the winter. And we've got to do things differently. The Green Party policy would be to start a Rights of Nature Act, giving that personhood. We're losing species. We're losing space for people to live. And I think we'll probably ask Joe to say what he thinks we should be doing.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Satvir, I'm going to let you say something not about Parkswood Broadway now. I know, sorry, that was a bit of a trap, wasn't it?
No, that's absolutely. I completely fell for it as well. I'm clearly very passionate about it. Right. Okay. So with the climate crisis, because I think and decarbonisation. Firstly, just to reiterate that I think it's real, because before, when we've been on Hustings, some people have claimed that climate change isn't real. And I believe that we're the first generation to really understand its impact and the last generation to be able to do something about it. It's why the Labour Party have said that it go hand in hand with economic growth, because people claim you can't do one without the other, but actually you can do both. It's why we said we'll have clean power by 2030. It's why we're creating Great British Energy as well. And actually, not only will that create loads of local jobs, it will mean that we can have our own energy independence and bring bills down for local residents alongside local businesses. But the crux of it, and I think this will have a huge impact in Southampton, is investing in green infrastructure, which every single business I talk to in Southampton, major businesses, major employers, will say that's the main driver of whether they survive long term or not. And you talked about the port. Somebody talked about the port. Actually, in reality, they would love to plug in more ships. Actually, they're losing cruise liners because they want to come to our port to plug in, but we do not, as Jane highlighted, we do not have the infrastructure to do that. So part of Labour's plan is to invest in green infrastructure. We've said that we'll have renewable-ready ports, which will be transformative not only for major employers like Southampton Port, but other major institutions like the university and the hospital and others in this city, which is just going to be so incredibly important to do. And if I was elected, I'd make sure I champion the green infrastructure.
Thank you. I'm going to bring Thomas in and then Philip.
Grand. So climate change is an existential crisis to humanity. If we don't deal with it, we're all going to be a lot hotter and a lot deader very soon. Now, the Lib Dems have a very strong platform in terms of fighting climate change. For a start, we would aim to fully transition our energy grid to renewable energy by 2030, or 90% by 2030 and 100% as soon as we can. But it also comes down to, as Jane, as you highlighted, we don't have enough grid capacity at the moment. And so to transition to renewable energy, we need to be looking at lots of different renewable energy systems. So we need to be looking at solar, we need to be looking at wind, sure, and during the coalition we introduced a lot of offshore wind, but we also need to be looking at tidal lagoons, we need to be looking at nuclear power as a way to get us to a sustainable energy production system so that we can reduce carbon emissions. And there's much more on this topic. There's much more we can be doing to protect our rivers and to protect wildlife and to combat climate change in general. But for a start, getting us to full renewable energy as soon as possible is key, and increasing grid capacity is key.
I realised we could have a whole evening on each of the questions tonight. I mean, they're such big topics, but Philip, and then I'm going to give each of the other panel members as well.
What Labour and the Tories don't tell you is the cost of this transformation. And I think one estimate is 2.5 to 3 trillion, which is your money. You're paying for it. Happy with that? Fine. Fine. That's great. So your taxes are going to go up, your cost of living is go up, your energy is going up. That's fine. That's fine. If you want that, that's your choice. Well, I recommend strongly, if you watch the film, Climate Change the Movie. I'll just leave it there. You see, they're all laughing now because it's a bit denial that climate has always changed.
So this is
it's changed in the last 3,000 years, 3 million years, 300 million years. So you need to look at your history, you need to look at that. Our records are only, 300 years old? Okay. So just be wary about your pockets and paying for this. Thank you.
Our records go far, far, far further back than 300 years because we have these amazing colleagues down at Knox in Earth Sciences who take cores out of the ground and can tell us what the climate... Anyway, climate... D.
I'd like to say that...
Let's not just... D, you've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's okay. So the Workers' Party would hold a referendum on net zero because of the huge expense and all the difficulties it would cause normal people. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well said. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, we already burn in the New Forest done every year, quite safely actually. So my, probably different to everybody else on the panel, but you can't control what you don't own. And currently, the vast majority of the emissions come from private companies. Actually, you know, we all think we must do something about it, but ordinary people, it's a fraction. And we've been having climate summits for probably longer than some of you have lived, and nothing is being done about it. This university has all the science and all the know-how that could solve that, but that's not being harnessed. You will only be able to harness that if you own the resources in the world to be able to make that happen.
So that's
and
quite
the only
a
way to
radical
do that
policy
is
solution.
a socialist solution.
Okay. So renationalise, start by renationalising and then nationalise out. Yeah?
I can't believe
Okay.
I'm going to have to start by saying, yes, I do believe in climate change. I didn't think I'd have to actually say that. But I do. I teach geography. I've seen the science. I think one of the things that gets overlooked is the progress we've made on this so far. We're the first developed country to get halfway to net zero. We have 7 of the biggest 10 wind farms in the UK. And if elected, the Conservative Party have pledged to treble our wind capacity, have 2 new carbon capture facilities, and to progress towards net zero without impacting people's bills. Because yes, climate change is an issue, but too many people don't see the consequences of it. Yes, climate change is real. Yes, we need to fix it. But I think we don't talk enough about how much progress we've made. It's all doom and gloom. But actually, Britain does lead the world in climate technology and moving towards net zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for keeping short. We could go on and on about this all night. I will just flag up that the university has 2 new groups. One is called Clean Air Southampton and the other is called Clean Water Southampton. And do write to me if you want to get involved in that after tonight. But the lady in blue.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I was going to bring us a little bit back closer to home in our university environment. Here we absolutely love our beautiful campus, but our buildings are starting to fall apart. In fact, they're not starting to fall apart, they are falling apart. And this doesn't give the world quality education and facilities for research that we would be really proud to offer, and it's obviously something this country is really, really strong on. So I'm interested, we've talked about tuition fees, but I'm actually interested in how the parties and what your policies are that will help us to improve the quality of our campus infrastructure and obviously with the benefits for our students and our research. Thank you.
Okay, so that's a question really about financing, which goes to the root of it. So it's not just about fees, it's about wider financing. Again, because we've been on this topic already, can I ask people to just give me 2 or 3 sentences? And I'm going to start, well, Philip's out of the trap with his microphone.
It's basically down to good leadership, good property management, and proper investment. I did for 3 years of the army property investment, property maintenance, etc., with a £16 million budget, and we made lots of savings and improved the estate. The trouble is with government, we look at the NHS and all that, there's an incredible amount of waste, and we need to tighten down that waste to ensure it goes in the right priorities, people,
Okay.
infrastructure, etc.
Thank you very much. Catherine.
Yeah, the budget to look after the infrastructure and the buildings is very often the one that gets cut. If you look at Southampton General Hospital, they're having problems there because they haven't had the investment over the years in the buildings. And it's been the same issue here. I've got a colleague who works here at the university, and the recent VC that you've had here has recognised the quality of the buildings here and how important that is to attracting students. And they've been following a programme to increase investment for that. But with the money that is coming into the university, there are always competing pressures for that money. So it's a real challenge, I think, for all organisations, right across public services. And the only solution to that is to move away from billionaires and millionaires, being able to extract a huge amount of money out of our country. Money needs to stay in our country and invested in our services and our people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Satvia, anything on?
Thank you for your question. I think in response to tuition fees, I already mentioned how I've been on a governing body for a local university, Solent, down the road, so I completely understand the challenges that you face, particularly when it comes between revenue and capital, and obviously capital being the buildings and revenue being the actual teaching. As I mentioned before, the Labour Party said that they'd work with the HE sector to ensure that there's a fairer funding model with respect to that. I would say more locally, and I have been working with the university on this alongside others, they are hugely investing in our local infrastructure and actually trying to find the best world-class kind of infrastructure available, whether it's actually physically here or whether it's elsewhere in the city, which I think is extremely exciting for this university, but also the city. And if I was elected next week, I'd ensure that I continue that work and champion it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually going to change tack a little bit because I think we're running out of time, and I do have two really big topics here, as well as a final question. And well, the two big topics, one is the NHS, and the other is migration. Hands up, who wants to talk about NHS? Okay. All right. And migration? I think NHS has it, although we might get some time for migration too. So NHS, what would you do to fix it? I'm just already assuming it's broken. I don't think I'm going to go down the path. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be so partisan. What would you do to improve it? Improve it. And I will start with Thomas.
There you go. I'd like to take just a couple of seconds on that last question because I think it's interesting, and I was going to pivot in an unusual way anyway, but I'll come to that. So our NHS is in crisis. We need to fix it. It's been underfunded, understaffed for far too long. Now, there's a lot of different problems, but one of the main problems we've identified is the gap in social care. People are not able to access the care they require in their old age, and it is causing to people being stuck in hospital long after they could have been discharged. So for the dignity of people as they grow older, we need to fix social care, and this will also reduce the pressure on the NHS. We also need to fix primary care. We need to have more GPs, and we need everyone to be able to access a GP within at least a week and 24 hours if it's urgent, and we would recruit a lot of GPs to do that. And here's the pivot to the last question. We would be investing a lot in both our crumbling hospital infrastructure and crumbling hospital buildings, and we would be investing in things like the Cancer Survival Research Bill. We want the government to be directly investing in research at universities like this one, which has a fantastic cancer research centre at the hospital, so that we are finding cures for cancers with lower survival rates, and so that we are providing the best healthcare possible to everyone. And quickly, because my partner is a junior doctor, and I need to talk about staffing, we need to fix NHS staffing. We need to make sure that NHS staff are supported and working in good facilities, and to do that we need to recruit more doctors, more nurses, more HCAs, more midwives, and we need to increase hospital funding, and that is top of the Lib Dem agenda for this election.
Thomas, thank you so much for that. I think none of us are going to disagree with that list of things that we need in terms of more doctors, more investment, etc. How are you going to pay for it?
Well, I will start by saying our manifesto is fully costed, so every single commitment we have made in our manifesto has an associated amendment. It might be a tax rise on big business, or a tax on corporate profits, or a windfall tax on oil and gas companies who have been profiteering off this disaster of a cost of living crisis we've had. You can look into the numbers if you'd like, they're online.
Okay. Ben.
Can I give you a suggestion? You can. And that is 10 pence on a litre of fuel raises 12 billion a year.
A very interesting suggestion.
And cost business. And everybody. We ought to.
Okay.
And your cost goes up.
So, we've got your suggestion recorded for prosperity. Ben.
Right, well, I already said at the beginning here, I wouldn't be here without the NHS and without Southampton General Hospital, and my sister works in the hospital as an OT. So by the end of this Parliament, we'll have 92,000 more nurses, 28,000 more doctors, 250 new or refurbished GP surgeries, and 50 diagnostics. Look, I've waited patiently while everyone else has talked.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I lost my thread.
50
diagnostic centres, because you need to be able to see a GP, and actually we need to free them up to be able to see the people that they need to see. We've committed to above inflation settlements for the NHS throughout the Parliament, so the money and the plan is there to invest in our NHS to make sure that it can do everything that we want it to do as a country and as a people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Catherine?
Just very quickly, another area that's been written to me is about the amount of money that's being leached out of the NHS. So £10 million per week is going into people who are profiting. This came through the Health and Social Care Act of 2012, and the Green Party would repeal that act and would stop money being profit for people
just very quickly,
that money coming out of the
another area
NHS.
that's been written
to what we would do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very, very succinct. Maggie? Anything to... Yeah.
Well, as the health worker on the panel, yes, I would like to answer this question. If the Tories think that they're doing well with the NHS, they are sadly mistaken. When they came into office, people who stayed on a trolley overnight in A&E was a handful of people a year would spend the night on a trolley. It's now hundreds of thousands of people every year spending at least a night on a trolley in A&E. It is like a war zone. I work often in A&E, and it is like a war zone. It is frightening for staff, and it's frightening for patients.
So to the solution?
It is not safe. It is not safe. Somebody mentioned about social care. Sometimes we've got 200 patients who are waiting to go home, who are well enough to go home. There is no social care out there for them. We would say we need the NHS fully funded. It is an enormous business. Of course it's going to take millions of pounds. Somebody suggested that if we were to have the same kind of funding as other European countries, we would have to spend another 40 million every year for the next 10 years. It is broken because it's not being funded. Please fight for this, because we are really struggling in the NHS with what's currently happening.
Thank you very much.
Can I just also say that asking NHS workers to do overtime when we were already desperately short of staff, to do overtime at weekends and in evenings, we already do that. So that is not going to work.
So
we worked with the private sector during COVID. It was chaos, absolute
So
chaos.
Maggie, that's a reference to, I think, a statement that Keir Starmer made last week. So I'm going to ask Satvia to respond to that. Thank you.
Thanks very much for asking a question about the NHS. Apologies, hugely not very professional, but I did find it hilarious, the Conservatives claiming that the NHS is fit for purpose at the moment when clearly everyone knows that it's not. This is a huge priority for the Labour Party. We said we'd fund it through completely eradicating non-dom statuses and getting tax dodgers as well. So, I mean, there's a parallel approach to this. One is the long-term future of the NHS is what we really need to focus on. So an NHS fit for purpose. But actually, I was with the chief exec of the General Hospital only last night talking about this, and he can't even think about the long-term solution of the NHS because it's in such crisis at the moment. So he's dealing with the everyday at the moment. So we have to deal with the acute crisis at the moment. It is why the Labour Party has said that we would introduce 40,000 more appointments every single week to bring that pressure down. We double the number of scanners in hospitals, which the chief exec said actually that would help diagnose people quicker. It also bring down the workload for local staff working at the hospital as well. Primary care is hugely important because at the moment, because you can't get a GP appointment, everyone's willing to wait 10 hours plus in A&E, which actually is just costing the government hundreds of pounds, even more. So we make it easier to get a GP appointment. But the two areas that I think often gets forgotten, which is so important, is dentistry and mental health. It's why the Labour Party have pledged that we will invest in 700,000 new appointments when it comes to dentistry, but also ensure that there's a mental health professional in every single school and recruit 8,500 new mental health professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know that Dee and Philip also want to come in.
Yeah, the NHS has a spending crisis. We've heard both Labour and the Tories over years and years throw more money at it, put more money into the NHS, billions and billions of more cash into it, and it's still broken. So we need to look at how the whole system works, is managed, and so on. There's a great deal of waste. I spent 5 years, part-time basis, involved in that, and there's a high level of waste there.
Okay.
What we'll do as a party, though, and please look at this up, one of the things we'll do to deal with staff retention recruitment is zero tax for 3 years on frontline medical staff and social staff.
Oh, and how are you going to pay for that one? Just given I challenged Thomas on his radical solution, is that fully funded?
Well, of course it's fully funded, otherwise I wouldn't say it. For example, one of the funding, I don't know if you're aware of this, quantitative easing, Bank of England prints money, Bank of England prints money, gives it to the commercial banks who then charge interest. It's about 35 billion, and this has been admitted by that as a problem with some high financial institutions.
Okay.
Foreign aid, 12 billion a year, we give abroad. Actually, we borrow that money to give abroad, and so we pay the interest on it. We want to halve that to invest in our own people.
I might have to drill into that if you're taking the aid budget. Is that the aid budget, or is that
the foreign aid budget?
The foreign aid budget. So you might need to have a referendum with the frontline staff whether they want to give up their tax and take away the foreign aid. But that's not for tonight. I'm just saying that
but we borrow the money to give it away.
That's an interesting proposition. I'm just going to come in and let Dee talk, and then I do want to have a yes/no question in a minute.
Okay, as far as the National Health Service is concerned, there are too many managers at the top taking home huge salaries, and there's so many private companies now within the National Health Service. And there are also too many quangos. So what we would do in the Workers' Party, we would nationalise the NHS, and we would also take firm control over Big Pharma, because at the moment they're open to malpractice and profiteering. They earn huge sums of money. So everything we do is for the normal, ordinary people, ordinary workers. So the ordinary workers in the NHS and all the patients, they are the people who we would be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Can I just come back as the only health worker?
No, there's quite a lot of health workers in the room, and I'm going to have a vote now. Would you rather pay your tax and have zero? Would you rather pay your tax and there be aid to many of the low and middle income countries, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, or would you rather not pay any tax and not have any aid? So who would like to pay no tax? Only health workers can vote.
I'm not saying pay no tax.
You said
health workers.
You said
yes.
three years no
but
tax for health workers.
This is a classic supply-demand issue.
Okay.
If you're short of staff, you raise the incomes up. So rather than raise that up, we give them a tax break for 3 years to recruit, retain, and bring people back into the service.
I'll have to get some economists in the room to cost it later. But that's an interesting And we've also got some deliberative democracy people in the audience as well. Maybe they can run
Perhaps
some
as you've
juries.
let reform back in, I might come in very briefly.
Very quick.
Okay, so the NHS is the largest employer in the country. I think you might actually break the country with that idea. And the other thing I wanted to come in on is we do not have lots of waste. We become incredibly careful about how we spend money. And also, we have always got scanners that aren't working. I'm sorry, but you've touched a nail. Because we don't have enough staff to run the scanners. So producing more scanners ain't going to help.
Okay, thank you. So this is a paraphrase of a very long question on migration, and I just want a yes/no answer from everybody. And then I'm going to turn to the final question, which is which I'm going to allow longer answers. But the question I'm going to ask you is, should international students be removed from immigration targets set by a new government? Yes or no? Should international students be removed from any immigration target set by a new government? Bearing in mind you're in a university.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we agree. I mean, they're paying.
They should, but their dependent shouldn't be.
Yes.
Do you want mummy to come with you?
I think some people have...
When you go working somewhere else, do you want your partner and your children there, or do you want them thousands of miles away?
Yeah. Well done.
Okay. Catherine, Dee, do you want to... in or out of the migrants?
In the Falkland Islands, my wife and children.
Okay. We're in a yes/no. Should they be in the target
yes,
or not?
and families welcome as well.
Okay, thank you. So the final question of the night is probably the trickiest question. It is, what do you most like and dislike about Southampton? And don't forget, this has been recorded, and you are standing to be the constituency MP for the Southampton test. So, what do you most like and dislike about Southampton? One sentence each on each of those. Like, or you can start with dislike if you like, and then finish on a high note, or start on a low note, and vice versa. Maggie, you're looking as though you're already ready to go.
Yes, I love the green spaces that we have in the city. I think our common particularly is wonderful. And I absolutely hate the poverty. I hate the fact that the inner city live 10 years less than people living kind of up this way.
Okay. Thank you. Catherine.
Similarities. I absolutely love the blue spaces in our cities, the river and the sea, but I abhor the pollution that is being pumped out into the River Itchen and the River Test.
Thank you. Philip?
My best like is following Southampton Football Club through thick and thin, which I've done since I was a boy. What I dislike is how the Socialist Labour Party have ruined the city and not realised our potential. Thank you.
Okay. So, Satvia, that's a little challenge back to you then.
My biggest like is the people of Southampton. They've made me who I am, and I think whenever we face huge challenges, Southampton people really come together and find solutions, and I'm just really proud to be a fellow Suttoner, and nothing would make me prouder to be your elected representative, championing such amazing people. My dislike, actually, and I suppose it's a reference back, is the fact that we've been chronically underfunded. We deserve so more. So if I was elected, I would definitely fight for every single penny that we deserve and a fairer funding. Thank you.
Ben?
Well, what I like most about Southampton is the people. When I was at my lowest ebb as a child, everyone I spoke to had a kind word. They were all wonderful people. The thing I dislike the most about Southampton is there's so many aspects of it that aren't yet world leading and aren't yet reaching their potential, and I really want to see as many of those areas become world leading as possible.
So I think Southampton's greatest strength is its diversity and its multiculturalism, and that we have so many people from so many different backgrounds coming together to make this city what it is. In relation to what I don't like, I think there is generally a lack of ambition for our city. I don't think there's strong plans to make it better, and in particular, I think we really misuse our fantastic history and heritage in this city. We don't have proper museums, we don't have a proper tourist information centre, the walls are, they are still locked away behind a building site. I'd like to see a bit more ambition for our city.
Okay, thanks. Dee? Okay, thank you. So that was a personal question, so Dee's not answering on behalf of her colleague. Right, we're at the end. So each candidate now, according to my rules, which I read on the Electoral Commission website about hosting hustings, and you know I'm an academic, so I'd have to do my research and get it absolutely right. You all now have 45 seconds as a a minute. We're overrun by a little bit. For a closing statement, and I'm going to go in reverse order of the opening statements. So that means, Thomas, it's your closing statement.
Great. So the Liberal Democrats are fighting for a free, fair and open society where everyone can get on with life without being repressed by a state, but we balance that with the need to tackle poverty and to stand up for the worst off in our society. So the Lib Dems will fix crumbling hospitals and make sure everyone has access to high quality healthcare. We'll protect our environment and make sure that our electricity generation is primarily renewable. We'll stop sewage dumping into rivers. We'll tackle poverty. We will end homelessness in the next parliament. We'll build 380,000 houses in the next year, including 150,000 council houses. And importantly, we will fix our broken political system so that every vote matters by introducing proportional representation. The Tory vote is collapsing across Southampton. We need a strong opposition to the next Labour government, and we can provide this. So please, on the 4th of July, give the Liberal Democrats your vote and help us build a brighter future for the UK. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Dee, do you want to give a closing statement on behalf of the Workers' Party of Britain, your candidate?
Okay, I would say to everybody here, if you're at all interested in finding out more about our policies, to look online, where we've got a very extensive laid out manifesto, which doesn't cover absolutely everything, but it covers the main topics. As I said before, our main concern, what we stand for as a party, is peace, truth, justice, and we're all totally fed up with the present state of situation in our own government. So that's what I would say. We are an alternative. And, you know, we do think that our whole country is in a crisis. We need new leadership and people who are going to get up and actually challenge and actually attend Parliament and be there for their own constituents.
Thank you.
So that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will make available all the website addresses for everybody. I'm saying that. I'll have to look them up myself probably tomorrow. But we'll make them all available for everybody. Thank you. So, Satvia, your minute.
Thank you very much. So, listen, I'm a local girl who works hard and loves our city. I always have and I always will fight for our city and the people in it. If you elect me, I'd love to do that and champion all of you as your Member of Parliament. This is a once-in-a-generation election. Everyone is talking about change. Change only comes by voting for it. Please don't rely on someone else to deliver it, someone else to vote for it. You actually have to vote for it yourself. And if you want meaningful, deliverable change, if you're sick and tired of this Conservative government, you have to vote for the Labour Party, because that is the only party that can win against the Conservatives nationally. It's the main two parties here in Southampton test, and I want to be part of a brighter future for everybody, and I'm looking forward, if I'm elected next year, to ensure that we work towards that together. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip, do you want to make a closing statement on behalf of John Edwards, who's the Reform UK candidate?
As we heard tonight, the country's broken because we've kept voting for the same parties, blue, red, blue, Labour, Tory, who keep pumping money, keep breaking the system, and have failed. There's a real opportunity on the 4th of July to make not change, but complete reform in our country at every level. And at the moment, only Reform UK is looking at delivering it with its contract with the people. We want to enrich you, less state, give the power back to you. It's not government that runs this place, it is the people of this country. And for Southampton, we've seen it destroyed by the Labour Party here. We need to enrich the city to make it better for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. Maggie, your 1 minute.
Right, yes. Well, if you want to do something about climate change, then you need system change. The current system we live under is rotten. It's not able to provide a decent standard of living for half the world's population. And we would argue that what we need is socialist change so that we can take the world's resources democratically and do something about the planet and about feeding the world's population and about decent health service in particular. And if you are interested, we have a public meeting on the 2nd of July at Friends Meeting House. Please come along, 7:30, and hear more. And join the Socialist Party. Fight for change.
Okay, thank you. Catherine.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming this evening and bearing with turning the heater off, the heater cooler, I should say, because we've all, I've been able to hear everything since then. So please vote for the Green Party. I'm working hard. I'm a local councillor here in Portswood Ward, and I would really welcome the opportunity to represent the whole of Test constituency. And if elected, I'll work hard for each and every one of you and your families. We need to do things differently now in our city and in our nation. The Green Party is the only party with a radical agenda. Climate crisis and loss of species are constantly issues that we're hearing about, but nobody else is really going to do anything about that. You know, we've talked about Palestine this evening. We really need to do something there very, very quickly. It's not something that can just be put on the back burner. We've also talked about the NHS a lot. We need to repeal the Health and Social Care Act 2012. And the Green Party is not afraid to speak truth to power, and we will continue to do that. So vote Green for hope and change, and vote for Catherine Barber. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ben, closing statement, please.
Well, first of all, thank you to everyone who organised and ran these hustings today. I know it's a lot of work and it's hard to do. My closing statement really is to thank you all for coming and to just say that there's too much depression in this room. I think we do this country down. Look at what we've been through. Look at the COVID lockdowns, the war in Ukraine. Look, there's more doctors, there's more police, there's more nurses than there was in 2010. We came in and there was a note in the drawer saying there is no money. And we're now the 4th biggest exporter in the world. Little England off the coast of Europe, and we're the 4th biggest exporter in the world. The Conservative Party, the Conservative Party is about a hand up, not a handout. For whoever you are, whatever your aims are, there is something in the Conservative manifesto to help you. Whether you're a parent who needs free childcare, whether you're someone who wants to get on the housing ladder with the Help to Buy, whether you're a pensioner who can benefit from the Triple Lock Plus. The Conservative Party often gets unfairly labelled the nasty party, but truly we are a broad church. There is something in our manifesto for everyone. Whether you agree with me or whether you don't, our democracy is precious. Please remember to vote on July the 4th, and please remember to bring your IDs. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it just remains for me to thank everybody. I did have my timer on the last set of things, and everybody was within 62 seconds, which is actually speaks to the quality of our candidates. I'm really delighted to say that I think this is the only hustings that is taking place in the constituency where all 7 of our prospective parliamentary candidates have been able to come or be represented. So a special thank you to Philip and Dee for standing in for their candidates who are unwell this evening. I think it's really important that every voice is heard. And please go out and vote and exercise your democratic right on the 4th of July. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to our candidates, and thank you to you in the audience. Thank you.